Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening all. A very warm welcome to you all on behalf of the Sightsavers events team. We are very much looking forward to supporting you with today's Global Disability Summit side event. Together we are stronger, working together to bring the ADP into force. We would like to open with a few housekeeping notes before handing over to Jalil Udum, the National Coordinator for Inclusion Ghana, who will welcome you to the session. So we are also delighted to offer international sign interpretation and closed captioning in English for today's session. You'll see on the Zoom menu bar the closed caption button. Please click on this and show subtitles now if you'd like to view the captions or hide subtitles to remove. Please note there's a few seconds delay with the captions as we've engaged a live captioner for accuracy. Thank you to our captioner and interpreters for your support today. Please be aware that this session will be recorded and distributed by email post-event. And we are really keen to encourage interaction throughout today's session. So please add your comments and questions in English to the Zoom chat by sending to all attendees and panelists. And please include the name of the speaker that you'd like to direct your question to. We kindly ask that all questions and comments are accessible without jargon and use plain language. Thank you. And we will aim to answer as many questions as possible. And finally, the Sightsavers events team are here to help you with any accessibility or technical difficulties. So please contact us using the chat facility on Zoom or email admin@sightsaversevents.com and we'll reply to you immediately. So I'm now delighted to hand over to Jalil to welcome you to the session. Thank you.
All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone in and around, across, within and outside Africa who has actually joined this particular side event. You're actually most welcome to what I think is the most interesting side event or conversation throughout this year's Global Disability Summit, which has the theme, Together We Are Stronger, working together to bring the African Disability Protocol into force. And please don't mention that in any way that I said this. My names are Obiron Jalil Odum. I will be your chief servant who will be moderating this side event. Let me now take this opportunity to acknowledge the sponsors or supporters of this particular side event. This is actually graciously co-hosted by the government of Ghana, the United Nations Ghana, Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations, Sightsavers, the African Disability Forum, and the African Union Commission. Please feel free, to send your questions that you may have for the panel via our chat box. Please use it as much as you can. Of course, there will be an opportunity to open your microphone and also ask questions. Certainly after the presentations are all done, your questions will all be answered. Now, let's get to the purpose of our gathering. As you may already know, on the 29th of January 2018, the 13th Ordinary Section of the African Union Assembly of Heads of States held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, actually adopted the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Persons with Disability in Africa, also known as the African Disability Protocol. The Article 838 of this particular protocol provides that the protocol shall only come into force 30 days after the deposit of the 15th instrument of ratification by a member state. However, 4 years on, we only have 10 countries who have actually signed. And indeed, only 2 countries have ratified this. This is Mali and Kenya. With Kenya actually ratifying some few days ago, about 10 days ago. As I stated earlier on, we need 15 countries to ratify before it is legally enforceable. Now let's look at it. If 4 years has only produced 2 ratifications, then I am afraid there's a lot to worry about. In this particular webinar or side event, we'll be hearing from our panel about their experience of ratification, as well as why the African Disability Protocol is an essential companion to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, to actually protect the rights of millions of persons with disabilities across Africa. We will also hear from the African Union about the support and resource available from them to support the process of ratification in countries. Now, as the title of the side event says, we are stronger together. Change cannot actually happen without the active involvement, support, cooperation of others. We want to begin to think about how we can work collaboratively as an effective mechanism for increasing the impact of our ratification campaigns. It is only by working together that we will actually achieve our shared objective of bringing this African Disability Protocol into force. Now, to do justice to the conversation, let me invite our very first speaker, who is essentially to give us a keynote address on the subject. Since Ghana is a co-host to the Global Disability Summit, we have a representative from Ghana government to do us the honor of giving us the keynote. This person is in the person of Mr. Mauto Ablo. Now let me introduce Mr. Mauto to you. Mr. Mauto Ablo is the Director, Policy Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation at the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection in Ghana. He is an expert in the areas mentioned as in monitoring and evaluation and social protection, and this he has done over the last 15 years. He is a pioneer who led the development of the National Social Protection Policy and has been involved in the design and implementation of the National Social Protection Strategy. And indeed, in terms of the very first cash transfer amongst, the sub-region, which we call the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty in Ghana, he is one of the champions of it. He currently chairs the steering committee of the Community of Practice of Cash Transfers in Africa, and also a trainer in social protection under the ILO, Finland, EU, and UNICEF-supported Transform program. He has an MBA in Corporate Strategy and Economic Policy from Maastricht School of Management in the Netherlands. He has also another Master's in Arts of Population Studies from the United Nations Regional Institute for Population Studies, and also a Bachelor's in Sociology from the University of Science and Technology. Mr. Ablo, you have the floor to address the participants.
Thank you very much. I would say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are located. I'm privileged to kickstart this very important side event. And on behalf of the government and people of Ghana and all the key stakeholders in the this disability movement, I wish to welcome all of you. I must say that I'm delighted to address this very important session as a side event of the second Global Disabilities Summit, which is being co-hosted by the International Disability Alliance, the government of Norway, and the government of Ghana on the theme Promoting Equality, Lasting Change for Persons with Disability through Joint Action. As stakeholders, the Global Disability Summit is basically about governments, civil society organizations, policy think tanks, non-governmental organizations, academia, and all relevant stakeholders coming together to make some commitments towards ensuring an equal world for persons living with disabilities. And with the objective of adapting and implementing strategies to ensure that the conventional rights of persons with disability is implemented. Permit me at this point to use this opportunity to congratulate all the organizations, all the organizers, and then everyone who has participated in the 2018 summit, which focused on a framework for implementing the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability, and where quite a number of participants or organizations have made some commitments towards reinforcing and implementing disability inclusion interventions in their various countries, governments, and organizations, policies, and programs. We've all made some commitments in the 2018, and I know we are all at various levels of implementation of these commitments. We in Ghana have been very, very passionate about the issues of disability, and we have made some significant strides in the implementation of our 2018 commitments. Not too long ago, as part of our preparation for this summit, we have had engagements as a government, institutions, disability organizations led by the Gambia Federation of the Disabled, our own National Council on Persons with Disability, research academia, and all the stakeholders have had some sessions where we try to review the implementation of the 2018 commitments. We've identified areas that we have done well. We've also identified the gaps in our implementation, and we also suggested strategies that we need to implement to, move to the next level. One thing that we have realized clearly was a framework that would ensure that all the relevant stakeholders have clearly marked roles and responsibilities in the implementation of the commitments. We've clearly identified this. And as a result of this, in the proposed 2022 commitments that we have made, we have come up with a framework on who implements what, how, and at what time. And going forward after this summit, what we're going to do is to now meet as stakeholders led by governments and then the Gambia Federation of the Disabled and other stakeholders to clearly come out with the clear rules and responsibilities of all stakeholders. And at the same time, also looking at the resources available so that we can effectively and efficiently, implement this commitment. These are some of the key lessons that we have learned and would want to share. And as a co-host, we are to show our leadership. Right. Our leadership in the engagements with persons with disability or disability organizations, and how the commitments that we are going to make could be implemented. And I would like to take this opportunity to suggest that let us all work together as stakeholders, implement the commitments, and at the same time also ensure that everybody is brought on board. Resource allocation is also a very key area that we need to focus on.
So, Mr. Wamaoto, can you please wrap up?
Yeah, okay. The issues that we're going to look at today, the various perspectives, the various examples, and the various platforms I believe it's going to provide us with the necessary tools, strategies to be able to move to the next stage. So I want to end this call presentation by saying that we have only 2 countries so far that have, signed to this protocol. Let us make a fresh commitment that after this summit, all of us involved would take the necessary step to sign the protocol, to make it more effective, to enable us to technically, financially, and committedly, work with the disability organizations to ensure that there's nobody left behind as far as development discourse is concerned. On that note, I want to say a big thank you and to welcome all of you to this very important side event. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mauto Ablo, who is the government representative at this meeting. We'll move on to our next speaker, and you know that the United Nations is a very good companion, of Leave No One Behind. And so we want to invite the UN rep in Ghana, Mr. Charles Abani, who is a seasoned international development practitioner with over 25 years experience in the public, private, and non-profit sectors, having worked in senior country and regional leadership roles in Africa, Asia, and Europe. Specifically, he has worked with ActionAid International, Oxfam in the Great Britain, Absolute Return for Kids, Palladium, and Chemonix. He also has extensive experience of managing organizations, projects, and driving change, as well as significant international nonprofit board experience. Dr. Charles Abani, UN Ghana, you have the floor.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you very much. Just a correction, my title is Mr. I don't want to claim any doctorate that I don't have at the moment. So representatives of the Minister for the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, and government representatives who are here, representative of the Africa Union, the program manager of the Africa Disability Forum, representatives from the UN family and the United Nations Committee on Experts for the CPRD, the president of the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations, senior advocacy, global advocacy advisor and Sightsavers. I think especially colleagues and friends from the disability community for whom this is an important, very, very important global summit. Civil society, media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all other protocols observed if I've missed you out. I'm absolutely delighted to participate in this important and timely event on behalf of the United Nations Development System, very conscious that there are a number of agencies who are making contributions. Today is a good point to take stock, reflect and ask ourselves, how can we deliver on the protocol and the promise of the Africa Disability Protocol? How can we make a tangible difference in the lives of the millions of people with disabilities across this continent? And how can we leverage the opportunities to ensure that, as the moderator said, no one is left behind as the world is recovering from one of the greatest pandemics in history and certainly of our time? Let me start off by congratulating the Africa Union Assembly of Heads of States, governments and various institutions for ensuring that the rights of persons with disability remain high on the agenda. The Protocol on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in Africa, the Disability Protocol, adopted in January 2018 by the 13th Ordinary Session of the AU Assembly, remains a driving force for spearheading and advocating for the rights of persons with disability. It's pleasing to see that the Africa Disability Protocol goes on the rights enshrined in the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, the CPRD, and the UN Charter. We need to ensure that both the Convention and the Protocol are well harmonized and complement each other and address existing gaps and challenges in the Africa context. It is, however, worrying to learn about the slow pace of member states signing the protocol and none ratifying it yet. We really entreat African states to accelerate the ratification of the protocol to facilitate the rights of persons with disability in the continent. And here is why. A World Health Organization source maintains that about 40% of Africa's population consists of persons with disabilities, including 10 to 15% of school-age children. This percentage would translate to about 300 million people with some form of disability on the continent. Bringing it home, in the recent 2021 Ghana population and housing census data, 8%, over 2 million Ghanaians have varying degrees of difficulty in performing activities and in some cases, not being able to perform those activities at all. And the proportion of women is 8.8% higher than men, 6.7%. Similarly, almost 500,000, representing 1.8% of persons with under the age of 5, have a lot of difficulty in performing activities and cannot do an activity at all, with the proportion of women, again, 56% higher than those of males. We cannot and must not leave these people behind. Advocating for their rights and ensuring that they have access to basic services and economic empowerment is critical. Building their capacity to actually advocate for their rights is also critical. It's for this reason that we urge governments, including the government of the protocol, and ensure implementation of the provisions thereof. As we call for speedy ratification, the experience of other human rights treaties teaches us that ratification alone will not make a tangible difference in the lives of people. What needs to happen, as you know, is for states to implement the provisions at the national level and at the local level through the adoption of relevant legislative, judicial, administrative, and educational measures. We recognize that member states cannot do this alone. We need a whole of society approach where the right partnerships with civil society, the private sector, organizations of persons with disability themselves contribute to gather the right momentum and mechanisms that trigger and sustain the implementation of the provisions that encompasses all spheres, promoting economic inclusion, and ensuring that voices of persons with disability are heard and acted upon in important governance and decision-making fora. Effective participation is at the core. The establishment of monitoring and accountability mechanisms will also assist in assessing whether appropriate measures are adopted and applied. Active participation of persons with disability in the response is not only a normative imperative, but also a measure of high instrumental value, as it can improve both the understanding as well as the response to the human rights challenges that persons with disabilities face, particularly during pandemics and emergencies, but particularly also in the context of this recovery. How does the recovery include persons?
Yeah, Mr. Abani, can you be wrapping up soon?
The UN, so there are after programs at the UN, launching a large program in collaboration with the Ghana Federation of Disabilities and the National Council of Disabilities, as well as with the ministry. And a number of agencies, UNICEF, WHO, UNESCO, UNFPA, UN initiatives, also WHO, UNFPA, have partnered with the Ghana Health Services, civil society organizations across the board. I think what we are doing now in our cooperation framework is a key opportunity to continue to embed this, not just in terms of what we will do, but the accountability that will allow the disability community and Ghana to hold us accountable. In concluding, while we are committing as the UN to support coherent services and support to persons with disabilities, I call on the state parties to work on the ratification, as we cannot allow persons with disability to be left behind. Persons with disability as individuals and through their organizations must be enabled to play meaningful roles in the formulation, implementation, monitoring, oversight, evaluation, and enforcement of the policy and legal instruments and programs directly affecting their lives. Only then can society truly own a human right treaty, and through it, ensure positive change happens.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Charles Abani. Thank you so much. So we have a very short video. It is what we call the Sightsavers Equal World campaign. Just a little brief about it is that it's actually calling for global development to be inclusive of people with disabilities. The campaign actually supports the work of organizations of persons with disability, disability networks, and Sightsavers staff to influence decision makers and actually achieve policy change. This video we are about to play has been developed by the Equal World campaign to support ongoing work of disability organizations and activists who want to achieve ratification of the African Disability Protocol. So shortly, the video is going to be showing.
The African Disability Protocol, or ADP, is a human rights treaty. It addresses forms of discrimination that particularly affect people with disability living in African countries, including harmful practices, beliefs, and superstitions. The ADP is the result of years of work by African disability rights activists, campaigners, and organizations. It was adopted in 2018 by the African Union to build on the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, taking into account the situation for people living on the continent. But for it to become legally binding, member states of the African Union must sign and ratify it. This is vital to tackle discrimination and inequality and improve the lives of millions of people with disability living across Africa. Find out more on this. Visit www.sightsavers.org/ADP.
All right, so that is the video from Sightsavers Equal World campaign. So our next speaker is the person of Maunyo Yakodagba. He's an ardent advocate of persons with disability who is an assistant director of audit. He's president of the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations and serves as a board member, at the National Council on Persons with Disability. She is also the first vice president of West African Federation of the Disabled and the member executive committee of the Commonwealth Disabled People Forum. Madam Maunyo Yakodagba, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Moderator Jalil. And going straight to my role here, by way of introduction, central to the discourse of disability is the question of systemic disadvantage, which ends complete exclusion of persons with disabilities in our society. And I'm happy that in an effort to address the problem, the African Union adopted a protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities as an African specific instrument that addresses the rights of persons with disabilities into details. I'm happy that Ghana's candidates for re-election at the Committee of Experts, the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, will come and tell us more about why AU's member states should ratify these very important instruments. But I'm happy to bring to the conversation highlights of the importance of this protocol on the development or welfare of persons with disabilities in Africa. First of all, access to justice. The protocol demands that African states include the needs of persons with disabilities in customary law proceedings. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. Unemployment. In addition to identifying the general rights to employment of persons with disabilities, it gives recognition that social and cultural values of employment to persons with disabilities, and it goes to specify that a quota system is introduced as a specific affirmative action to measure with employment situation of persons with disabilities, and also on accessibility to the built environment. The protocol emphasizes that we concentrate as well accessibility in the rural setting. Currently, a lot of efforts are at the urban centers. We need to look at our rural folks as well so that we don't leave them behind. On education, the protocol highlights the linguistic identity of deaf persons as a major right. We're calling that countries, for instance, make sign language as a language, a recognized language. I think in Ghana's constitution, you need to even be able to speak one of a local language qualified as a Ghanaian. And so we need to recognize the linguistic identity of deaf persons. And I must say that the protocol recognizes persons with albinism as a distinct category of persons with disabilities in Africa. We are all aware that there is still increased attacks in Mozambique, Malawi, Zambia. And that is why this protocol is calling for protection of persons with albinism. And there are also marginalized groups like older persons with disabilities and the youth. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. And in the next slide, we need to ensure that even the there are organizations of persons with disabilities within this category. There are other categories of persons with disabilities that are marginalized. For instance, I'm happy they highlighted persons with albinism. There are also burn survivors, mental health people as well. And I would like to conclude in the next slide that I'll call also raises that I call for assigning and ratification of this protocol by all member states to operationalize it, and particularly calling on my own head of state, His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to demonstrate leadership in ratifying this protocol. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. It is important that we call on all heads of states across the continent to ratify, the disability protocol. And so this is a call to action for all governments. Now to our next speaker, and please, we are behind time, so let's stick to the time that we have been given to speak. We have our next speaker, who is Madame Gertrude Oforiwa-Fefuame. She's actually an expert member of the United Nations Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disability, and currently Ghana's nominee for re-election to the CRPD committee. Her current leadership positions include a board member of the Federation, the president. She's also the president of International Council for Education of People with Visual Impairment in Africa, and also a commissioner of the World Council of Churches. Madam Gertrude Oforiwa-Fefuame, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, moderator. All protocol observed. I'm honored to be here, and I'm Gertrude Oforiwa-Fefuame. And I'm speaking on the point, do African Union member states need to ratify the African Disabilities Protocol even if they have ratified the Federation Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities? I'll introduce briefly the importance of the CRPD, a bit of the gaps in the convention, some examples of the different situation and why the AU should ratify. At the international level, under the umbrella of United Nations, government have often had several discussions to address the probable picture of the situation of persons with disabilities. And so in 2006, these efforts resulted in the adoption of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. It is an international treaty specifying the fundamental rights of persons with disabilities. It reflects the actual experience of persons with disabilities and covers rights including but not limited to civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. It allows discrimination of all aspects of life. So the importance of ratifying the CRPG is to promote, protect, and ensure the full and equal enjoyment of rights and fundamental freedoms by all people with disabilities. And it is also to promote respect for their inherent dignity. Ratifying the convention is not just a symbolic gesture, but a legal step that will enforce their respective domestic legislation in those countries. And therefore, abiding effect. It serves as an international benchmark in addressing the fundamental needs of persons with disabilities. Additionally, it offers a major opportunity to achieve a parallel shift from being object of charity and welfare on being on the equal basis with others, enjoying the same rights under the human rights model as established by the Convention. It serves as a key advocacy tool for implementation and monitoring. Some of the gaps is that key to all treaties, and that they must be domesticated to be effective. This means translating from international level laws to policies actions while retaining the intention set by the global level. This has been mentioned by a few other speakers. So the UNCRPD, which is adopted by over 50 African countries, has for many years been a key human rights treaty, holding countries to account on disability rights. But global treaties do not reflect fully the lived needs of every country. While people with disabilities will experience many of the same forms of discrimination and come together in solidarity in shared experiences, global concerns are not always the same as African concerns. So for 80 million people in Africa, from local customs, traditional beliefs, as we said, de-emphasized, harmful practices, and minority groups, there are a range of disability rights issues that are unique to us as Africans. There are some examples of this situation. To some extent in Africa, a meaningful understanding of disability depends on specific cultural values and perspectives of disability. Discrimination against persons with disabilities in Africa are often based on traditional myths, and in this case, a disability is perceived as a result of a case or result of a living life, and therefore to claim this ritual often subjected to awful rituals and traditional exorcisms. The CRPD exercises this, but
can you please be wrapping up?
Yes, thank you. So, country distribution. The African Disability Protocol and practice. And the connection is to complement. And these practices call for all of us, as have been said earlier, that it is not neither or, but complementing and making sure that persons with disabilities in Africa get this opportunity. Moving from only these two, ratification, to 15, that is to be used so that we are no more left behind, not used as toys, not used as left behind, but we all come together. Please, Africa, come and join us to ratify so we live as no longer behind. Let us walk the Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Gertrude Fefuame. Now, just so you know, we have, persons with over 100 persons with disabilities all gathered at the La Palm Royal Beach Hotel, who are listening into this conversation, and I'm sure they may have some questions at some point. And so we will allow them at some point when we have the Q&A section. But getting on to the program, we have two more speakers. We have we have three more speakers. We have Mr. Abebao Abebe, who is a project manager in Ethiopia at the African Disability Forum Office, which is actually a continental membership organization of persons with disabilities in Africa. He's in charge of managing all African Disability Forum projects and activities. He also has a first degree in health education and promotion, and a master's degree in public health from the Addis Ababa University in 2016. Mr. Abebao Abebe, you have the floor.
Okay, we just appear to have, we're just waiting for the video to come clear for Mr. Abebao. We could just check that, please. You could just try to restart your video. Can you hear us okay? Okay, let me just have a quick check for you, Jalil. I think we might have to return back to Mr. Abebao, and maybe let's try again. I'm just going to try one more time.
No, his video is on.
Oh, there we go. Working. It's working. Over to you. Thank you very, very much.
So Abebao, kindly go on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jalil. My name is Abebao. I'm speaking from Ethiopia, where we are having the African Union headquarters and also my organization, the African Disability Forum. I'm really pleased to be one of the speakers for this important side event today. Before I dive into my presentation, let me have a few seconds to say a few words about ADF. The African Disability Forum, ADF, is a continental membership organization of organizations of persons with disabilities in Africa. And our vision is to see an inclusive Africa where all persons with disabilities and their families enjoy their rights and their voices are heard as stated in the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So our mission is to promote the rights and inclusion of persons with disabilities and their families in the continent through empowerment, participation of persons with disabilities, unifying and amplifying their voices, and also strengthening the capacities of OPDs. Next slide, please. So ADP has got also another name. It's called the African Disability Protocol, and also Protocol on the Rights of Persons with Disability in Africa. And the third name is Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in Africa. So I prefer to name it ADP. So ADP seeks to provide for the rights of persons with disabilities from the African perspective, which it also takes into account the lived experience and perspectives of persons with disabilities in Africa. It, of course, maintains the core values and principles of the CRPD. Next slide. As you all know, so far, majority of member states of the African Union have ratified the CRPD, about 87% of the 54 African countries. And the African Disability Protocol is also a complement to the CRPD. Unlikely, a few member states have ratified this important instrument, ADP. So universal ratification of this protocol is a prerequisite to enable persons with disabilities benefit from the gains of this protocol. Next slide. So to share with you some of our experiences on what we have been working to advocate for ratification of this protocol, we had organized a regional workshop where we invited OPDs from 7 African countries, and which aimed to build their national capacity to effectively advocate for the ratification of ADP by their respective countries. The other one also we have produced a regional advocacy strategy, a tool which we use to advocate for ratification of this protocol. Next slide. So these are the participants of the workshop. Next slide. So we have a message from Muhammad Khrubali from the Gambia Federation of the Disabled. It's a very short video. Let's listen to it.
Okay, good afternoon. I am Muhammad Khrubali from the Gambia, and I am the chairman of Gambia Federation of the Disabled. I am privileged to attend the workshop in Kenya, Nairobi, on the ratification of African Disability Protocol, ADF. The ratification of African Disability Protocol is very important for all the African countries as a continent, specifically for the Gambia, because the said protocol represents the voices on fundamental rights and freedoms of all persons with disabilities, and the protocol, of course, complements the obligations enshrined in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So ratifying this particular protocol actually will call for mutual respect, protection and promotion of the fundamental rights and freedoms of persons with disabilities. And of course, as I have perused the protocol, you can see that it also addresses at least different African contexts that in variance with the UNCRPD, but even though these are the two conventions or international instruments that are more or less the same, that keep on complementing each other. So if it is being ratified, I'm sure it will have that legal standing and legal force, upon the stakeholders to ensure that the fundamental rights, freedoms and aspirations of persons with disabilities will be respected and will be implemented to the letter. And if that is done, persons with disabilities will have guaranteed convention or instrument that will actually call for respect in the event of any violation or infringement of their rights. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Abeba. Were you going to say something more?
Yes, I do have a few more slides. So the other
I'll give you only 30 seconds if you can complete.
Okay. Okay. So we have promising practices from Gambia, Ethiopia, Botswana to ratify this protocol. Next slide, please. We are also working together with the African Union Commission to collaborate and work together on ratification of this protocol. Next slide, please. So we ask the African governments to ratify this important protocol and to make it as part of their commitment for the GDS. Next slide. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Abeba Abebe of the African Disability Forum. Now to the next presenter, who is Lefoko Kesamang, and please forgive me if I didn't mention your name very well. He is a social development specialist with substantial cross-functioning skills at the African Union Commission. Is the Senior Policy Officer with the Division of Social Welfare, Vulnerable Groups, Drug Control and Crime Prevention at the Department of Health, Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development. in the African Commission. He previously worked for the health services of the government of the Republic of Botswana as the clinical social worker, and he also served as the health attaché at the Botswana Consulate General in Johannesburg, South Africa. Mr. Kesselman, please, you have the floor. Just 5 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I will try to save the time so that we could give time maybe for interaction. Just go on the next slide. I would like to, first of all, just inform you that the protocol, like other related disability interventions or strategies, have been founded on a framework that is called the African Disability Architecture. So it is not just a kind of founded on its own, a standalone. So it is part of a bigger picture, and it is also geared towards driving towards the Africa that we want, the Africa that everyone should be part of and also be involved in developing it. And it is also important to recognize that this framework is founded on 3 pillars. The first pillar is the program, which is the African Union Disability Strategic Framework, and the second is the institute, which is the African Union Disability Institute, which is still to be established. But currently we are looking at the third pillar. They are not according to maybe the way I'm saying them. This is the legal instrument. You can go to the next slide. And the program is to address the barriers and the acceptable situation of persons with disabilities in Africa. Next slide. And as I have said, the institute is there and it has to be established. And it is a technical specialized office, which is going to be hosted by one of the countries of the African Union to ensure that it supports member states and other stakeholders in ensuring that persons with disabilities in Africa experience and also enjoy their rights. And it will be a secretariat. It will have a secretariat. Next slide. Now coming to the protocol, which was, as has been mentioned, adopted in 2018 by the heads of state. It is a legal instrument to ensure that the rights of persons with disabilities are founded in all the treaties and the policies of the African Union at national level. Next slide. Yeah, the next one. Of course, it is very, very important to allay any fears from anyone that the protocol is not kind of watered down as compared to the UN Convention. Now, let me just get into what are the obligations of member states before I close. It is very, very important that when we come to the ratification, the whole responsibility lies with a particular member state. And for that to happen in a ministry that is responsible for disability or that is responsible for the ratification of either AU or international conventions and treaties, it is very, very important that the person, the official or the unit that is responsible for disability should be the one to initiate the process of ratification. Otherwise, no one, I want to repeat, no one will pick it, because that's the responsibility. That division, that department in that ministry, and this ministry should also take responsibility to ensure that the process is started, and they will be supported by other ministries like the Ministries of Justice, the desk officer at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs responsible for treaties, the Attorney General, etc. And it has to be started somewhere by someone who is accountable and responsible for disability. Next slide. And this person should be supported by other key stakeholders, all organizations of persons with disabilities, activists, researchers, whoever. Look at yourself as part of this and go there to support and provide any resources that are there. And human resource is the key. The human capital is the key. It is not the financial resource that really hinders this protocol to be ratified. And lastly, to say that it is very, very important that everyone is involved, including persons with disabilities themselves, because they are the ones that this protocol was initially developed for and adopted. And lastly, let me just encourage each one of us that it is our responsibility for us as the Commission is to ensure that the protocol we facilitate its ratification. That is where we start, and that is where we end. As to what happens at national level is each individual and national of that country to ensure that this ratification comes into reality. And I would like to encourage you, don't despair, don't be discouraged, because there's a lot that is going out there. And most of the countries have got goodwill to do this. But the challenge might be that that officer that I started talking about may not have the capacity, the knowledge, the awareness, even the interest, because it may not be a person with a disability or a person who is interested in the area of disability. So each one of us, let us take this responsibility. Next slide. And I would like to say for you to look at this table that I've just developed. The next one, that how many countries have ratified and how many countries have only signed. And this protocol is also related to the protocol on the rights of older persons in Africa. And another protocol which has been adopted just a week ago, that is the protocol on the right of citizens to social protection, social security. It also affects us, and we have to look at them as one so that they may be ratified and bring the joy and the rights of persons with disability in Africa. I would like to say thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kesseman. We are going to have a very last speaker. That is in the person of Madam Grace Enchi Achu, who is the Sightsavers Senior Global Advocacy Advisor. She is a passionate advocate for change with a focus on working with underrepresented, challenging the structural causes of inequalities with over a decade of extensive operational and technical experience in advocacy concept development. She's actually currently leading Sightsavers engagement with African Union and working with countries to bring the African Disability Protocol into effect. Madam Grace Enchi Achu, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jalil. So I'm Grace Enchi Achu, a Senior Global Advocacy Advisor, and I lead Sightsavers Advocacy around the African Disability Protocol. The past 2 years, we have been supporting country colleagues and partners to build the awareness of the protocol with decision makers, helping them to understand the importance of the African Disability Protocol as a regional human rights framework that seeks to strengthen the protection of persons with disabilities on the continent. The influencing path that we have taken in each of these countries has been distinct based on the context, and yet common threads have emerged. One of the main challenges has been the very low awareness of the African Disability Protocol among those in government, what protection it seeks to provide for persons with disabilities and why it is necessary in addition to the CRPD. This lack of awareness is mirrored outside the government with the general public. Yet, without awareness of the ADP, the right it seeks to guarantee, achieving the Africa we want will only be a mirage. There is much still to be done in order for us to address these issues. But what we, together with other stakeholders as a movement have achieved so far, leads me to believe that our commitment and our common vision of 15 ratifications to bring the protocol into force is possible within the next few years. Working together, we can achieve much more. We are pleased to announce today that together with ADF and AUC, we are planning to launch a regional advocacy campaign for ratification of the ADP to collaborate and work together. More details will follow, and we encourage those who want to be part of this initiative to register their interest via the email that will be provided in the chat. Together, we are much stronger and we can achieve the 15 ratification. Thank you so very much, JL.
Thank you so much, Madam Grace. It has been a pleasure listening to many presenters, great presenters who have given us perspective of where ratification starts from, who are the collaborators. We have also learned about the challenges that the ratification has faced over the years and what needs to be done. I think that to the extent possible, we have some ideas, and I believe also we have still some questions lingering. And so we want to open the floor for those who have questions. I already have some questions in the chat box. I'll ask that and also give opportunity to those who want to speak. I have a question from one Boma Fosong. He said that how will the African Union support countries like Cameroon, who recently ratified the protocol, to roll out effective implementation? I believe one of the panelists can take it up. Then I have another question. Someone asked, what factors have allowed for the ratification of the protocol in Mali and Kenya, and how can this be replicated in other countries? We also have another question from one John Majisi, who says that, what will you expect as the role of parliamentary or legislative disability caucus in parliament, in ensuring the ratification of the protocol by various African governments? And then someone also congratulated, government for the effort at this Global Disability Summit. Can we have those questions answered and then admit other questions? So one is to Government of Ghana. So can we have the Government of Ghana lead to pretty much answer that question?
Okay. Hello, thank you very much. The issue of ratification is a process. It's not just an event. It's a process where all the relevant stakeholders, come on board to have discussions and to go to a process for the ratification documents to be prepared, goes to cabinet and gets to parliament, finally for the ratification to be done. And as a country, we have already started some discussions or initiated discussions to go to the process to get this protocol ratified. The first step is the signing, the second one is the ratification. So we are not against the signing, but we have just initiated the process, and we're going to get all the stakeholders in Ghana involved to go to the process and get it ratified within the shortest possible time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone from the African Union to actually respond to the other question?
Yes, thank you so much, moderator. Let me just start by saying that if Cameroon, like maybe other countries, because I've been hearing those beautiful reports that they've ratified, if they have ratified at national level, the next step, and which is the final step, and which is very, very critical for us, is for the member state to deposit the articles for ratification with the Office of the Legal Counsel here. That is when those countries will be find themselves added in the list of those countries which have ratified. And let me just say that for the ratification actually is a pledge, and it's a pledge and a decision by a particular country that we do recognize the importance of ratification and for the domestication, implementation, and reporting on this protocol. So the role that we can play as African Union after ratification is when that particular country would be saying to us, yes, we have ratified, we need some support and some guidance on how to go forward in the implementation. Remember, the African Union Commission in particular, which I'm representing, is an organization that is the secretariat to the member states, the 55 member states. So it's very, very important to know that we are funded by the same country like Cameroon to do whatever we can do. So, but what we can do is to provide that technical support and where possible to link you with maybe other stakeholders who may be interested to instead of supporting the African Union as a body, but to support a particular country. So this is where we can come in to say, okay, there is a country here called Cameroon, which may need your support and your assistance. But technically, we are available to find a way of providing support on how now to go beyond the ratification. I think I've managed to clear that. I've responded to some question on the question and answer section. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any additional questions? Otherwise, I can invite Mr. Thomas Ongolo, who I have seen online, to make a few comments.
Thanks very much. Yeah,
sure.
I think I would also just like to add my voice to the clarion call, which all the panelists have stated, that I think it's imperative for the African countries to ratify the protocol, because with it, it shows not just a commitment, but the first step that all the national laws and the programs that follow up will facilitate realization of the rights of persons with disability in those respective countries. I think it's also important that we also join Sightsavers and Grace's call to all the organizations of persons with disability across Africa, in collaboration with all other players, that we join this campaign of advocacy, an advocacy that will drum up support for the ratification. And I think working with the African Union, the Focus Office, realization of the 15 ratifications is not something which is something definitely which we should be able to achieve come the next summit of the African Union. And I would like to congratulate the conveners of this side event again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas Ongolo. Can we have at least 2 more questions or comments? Otherwise, I will just give our closing remarks and then we can call it a day.
Yeah, can I? There's a question there. Let me just respond to it. And thank you, Thomas, and the rest of the people who have been assisting here. Let me just say that it is important that as Africans, we have to bear this in mind, that we can learn from each other. The countries that have ratified, there is something that really motivated them to do that. And as this, through the sisterhood and the Pan-African spirit, let us establish relationships, whether at a technical level or political level, or even, at the managerial level of either permanent secretaries or director generals or ministerial levels. Let us establish this sisterhood and find out how they went about it, and also what we can learn from it, and what lessons can they share, and what obstacles, if any, that they met. Of course, each country has got their own legal processes of ratification, but we can still learn from each other. And there's a lot that we have here in this continent. And if we can collaborate and build this synergy and these relationships, you can learn something from Mali, you can learn something from Kenya. Even those countries which have not yet deposited their ratification articles, they can still be helping each other. And then we can see how we go about it. Of course, there are always fears, moderator, let me end by saying this. When you come to legal instruments, they are not that easy, because some of the countries or some of us, we fear having to ratify, and then we fail to deliver. And we think that legal instruments or treaties are heavy and demanding. Actually, a lot of African countries, I can assure you, and Thomas can attest to this, because we used to sit together face to face here, that there is a lot that we are doing in the area of disability, a lot. And Africa, I mean, even politically, I've seen the former, I mean, no, not the former, a member of parliament from Ghana, Mr. John, whom I used to collaborate with. There is a lot that we are doing. Let us not fear ratification, because ratification will just be confirming what we are already doing in most of our countries. Even the countries that don't have enough resources, don't even have, but they are doing a lot. So it's just ratification should not be something that we fear. I wanted just to emphasize that. And that is the message, that is the spirit that we need to carry across the continent. Thank you, moderator.
All right. I think that the questions that we have, let me just check if there is any other question. The questions that we have are finished. Is it? Yes. Okay, so all too soon, we have come to the end of this great side event. We encourage, those interested in finding out more about the regional African Disability Protocol campaign to actually sign up through the link in the chat box. You can check, the chat box. But with the very last comment, from our last speaker, I want to emphasize the fact that we should not be afraid of ratifying. It is important that we see that this is protection for people with disabilities. And as the team goes together, we are stronger, working together to bring the African Disability Protocol into force. With these few words, I want to thank every speaker, all panelists, and those and Ms. Abulo, who made the opening speech, as well as all participants from across the globe and outside, wherever you came from, that you joined this call. I want to thank you for all the comments and all the participation. I hope that you have learned something from this. Go ahead, work together with all stakeholders in your various countries, and let's push the agenda of ratification of the African Disability Protocol. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jalil, and a big thank you to all of our speakers. It's been our pleasure to support you today. Thank you also to everyone for joining us. So we will now end the meeting. Thank you.